Welcome back to the Creative Kingdom Society. This is Jake Ballentine with Chuck Schofield. This is the show about the creatives behind the creatives. Today, we're talking about the behind the attraction episode, all about the castles in all the parks. And I never really thought about castles as an attraction, but apparently some of the parks even consider it an e-ticket attraction, which I thought was very cool. But before we get into that, we love talking about what content we've consumed, what kind of things we've been up to. So Chuck, why don't you start us out?
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I'm excited to talk about castles. I was excited to watch this episode a couple times and think a few thoughts I had never thought before about the castles and learn a couple things new. Yeah, since the last time we recorded, since the Space Mountain episode, I've consumed at least 2 pieces of content that I want to plug real fast. Of course, one of us is almost always going to plug the Disney History Institute podcast with our favorite Todd James Pierce, who was in this episode again for a few seconds.
Once again, it's always for little things, just little.
This one was a little more relevant than the last one, but no, it's always good to see him. But he had a really good episode out on his podcast this week on the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World, and I think it's going to be a multi-part,
cool,
multi-episode series, but because it's this week, or tis the season for that. A lot going on in Florida, so it's cool to hear from him on that, the backstory of how it all came together and whatnot.
Yeah.
But the other thing I wanted to plug for sure, and I don't remember, to be honest, I don't remember if we brought him up yet on this show, but he's always been one that I even thought about mentioning in the first episode, and that's Offhand Disney. Have you watched?
I love him. Love his. It's so fun.
I forgot his name. What's his name?
I don't remember. I don't remember. But that I feel
awesome. Bad now. But he's got the quirkiest sense of humor.
Yeah.
And it's become like, it's like, oh, that's an actual cool contribution here, and that is actually entertaining. Just his weird personality.
Yeah, but unique personality. He even is able to somehow be critical in a very fun and positive way.
Fact. Yeah.
Where sometimes there's some of the other people who are, they're not wrong what they're saying, but sometimes it's like, I'm not going to mention names, but I was watching one this morning and I was just like, I really don't need this negativity in my life. Like, this is kind of bringing me down.
You know what? You say you're not going to mention names, but I'm going to go fishing here. And just, you put out the caveat about it, but just to satisfy my curiosity, who was it?
It was Poseidon Entertainment.
Oh yeah. I really like that guy though.
That's the thing. I have to be clear when I say I don't need this in my life. What I'm saying is because 1, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
2, it's so well thought out, and 3, it's addicting and entertaining. So like, what I mean is I started binging them, and then I'm like finding myself going like, oh, I actually liked that, but now I'm like, he's not wrong. Like, he's not wrong. And then so there's that. And then what I notice is the more I spend time watching things or listening to things that are really more critical in nature of anything, I find the more critical and nitpicky I am in my own life. And it kind of rubs off on me. So I kind of try to stay away from those things.
I hear you. And you got the sign in the background, focus on the good. And I know you well enough to know that that's a good approach, a good mindful approach to have in general, but not to get too, we got to stay balanced and all that stuff, but not to get too sidetracked. The reason why I brought up Offhand Disney is because he just put out an episode entitled "The Truth Behind Disney Park Icons." And I'm gonna guess that he put it out around the same time as the Castles episode came out. But I happened to watch one and then the other and thought that they beautifully complemented each other, whether he intended that or not. He added some interesting points, like we'll come to later. And I was hoping, after I saw him do it, I was hoping they were going to do it in the episode. And I'll just jump to that part right now, real quick. But the part where they're talking about how the two castles that inspired the Disneyland castle, the one in France, with the name that I can't pronounce, I'm sorry, the Shannon no show.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But then the new,
It's in Soren.
well, no, that's my point here. Not that one, but the new Weinstein,
Oh, that one is in Germany, and that's the one in Soren.
that's the one in Germany
Yeah.
mentioned in the episode. But then they should have plugged, like Offhand Disney did, that's in Soren. I didn't realize that was the one in Soren until he said it. You knew somehow, but I didn't realize. And what a cool nod! What a cool Easter egg! Like I thought Soren in every way was a kind of a step down from the original Soren over California, but that's a cool little perk. That's a cool little Easter egg.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that he mentioned that, and it kind of complements this episode.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. His stuff is so good. Yeah, it's just so fun. Look up and look up Offhand Disney vlogging, and he does like a few videos, and like one of them he's on a trip to Disneyland, or maybe it's Disney World, I can't remember. But like 5 minutes into it, he's just like, guys, let's be honest. I'm terrible at vlogging. That's why I do videos at home. I don't do this. I feel so awkward. Everything about the, and he just went on this rant about like why he doesn't do what people message him all the time to tell him to do. Like, hey, you should do vlogging too. You're so funny. It'd be cool if you did that. And he's just like, I feel so awkward. And I thought it was so funny.
Yeah. The awkwardness and how he embraces it is like endearing. Like,
Yeah.
It's cool to be that vulnerable and self-deprecating in a positive way, like,
yeah.
Anyway, what did you consume this week?
So two different things. One was actually from a couple weeks ago, but I didn't mention it on here, and I wanted to talk about it. Earlier when we were talking about what we're consuming and those kind of things, and the focus on the good sign, for me, that's all about my mental health. Like I live with that kind of mentality so that I keep my mental health where I want it to be. But there was an incredible video from Paging Mr. Morrow about who is Paging Mr. Morrow. And I sent you the link. Did you watch it?
Speaking of endearing, quirky personalities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a special episode too.
It was, because he just, not only did he talk about like his life and who he is, and the ups and downs of his life, from childhood, experiencing his parents being divorced, to believing his uncle when he told him that Disney World was the factory around the corner in Pennsylvania that he never got to go to. Talking about how that was always his dream as a kid, and what he's doing now was like a dream come true as a child. But also like really pointing out the challenges of adulthood, going through divorce, going through things like that, and him going to the Disney parks and making videos being the thing that really saved his life and brought him back into happiness. And I thought that was a really cool thing, because we talk about the parks and all the, what the Imagineers do and what the creators do. But at the end of the day, like, this is a place that means a lot to a lot of people, including us, not just for the fact of it's cool, but for what it means to us at a different level.
Yeah, well said. And very, I'm curious, like how far deep down the rabbit hole, or how far into this niche group of fans do you have to be to appreciate an episode like that? But even from just a human interest story, it was an interesting episode.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm on his YouTube feed right now, and it looks like it's the most viewed video in several months at least.
Wow, good for him.
So, I
Good
mean,
for him.
I think it resonated with a lot of people. There's one that has about the same, but for the most part, in the last 2 months, it has the most views in the last 2 months. So, I mean, I think that it obviously did resonate with people, because I think that all the time when I watch something, I go, so who is this person? Like who are they? I want to know something behind them. And then I wanted to plug one other thing. I really love Provost Park Pass. Chris Provost, also really incredible guy. I had the opportunity to meet him. But he did a video this week that was just a tour of Disneyland, and it was 35 minutes, and it was him walking around the park and seemingly speaking off the top of his mind. Probably wasn't. He's very scripted and very calculated on what he does, even though it doesn't seem like that. He is very, very calculated on those kind of things, but it seemed very off the cuff, and maybe this one was, but it was just fun for him to go around the whole park and kind of give his 2 cents on just about everything all in one place. So if anyone's missing Disneyland, check that out. It's a lot of fun. Are you okay?
What a great spot for a tickle.
Yeah, there you go. But
apologize.
with that being said, let's jump right into the episode on the castles. To get started, I think we have to talk about the term weenie. I think we have
man,
to
you want to
start.
start with weenie, man? Man, I'm sorry. I don't know why.
We can take a quick break.
Nah, well, I'm good. I mean, you could cut it or not cut it. I don't care. I'm human.
Yeah.
But no, I'm good now. But
Okay. So let's just do this then. I'm gonna start over from the let's jump into the castles. So
okay, good. Okay.
yeah,
No, I
because
appreciate it.
that's I stopped, and then there's a pause, and then there's all
Yeah.
that. So let's start right there. So
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
okay. All right, cool. Well, let's jump into the episode about the castles. So what stuck out with you from the very beginning, Chuck?
Well, it's I love the concept of an icon, a visual icon, a symbol. Even if you think about like how icons are used in not like how we think of icon today, like some famous person,
Yeah.
but like icon, like how like religions use like
Icons and relics and
visual, something that's visual, that you often need to go to and visit in sort of a pilgrimage sort of way, a place where different celebrations are held in front of or around or near, or like even rituals surround this icon. Like I started thinking of icon in a different way. And this episode made me think thoughts about the castle that I never, like connections that I never really made, frustrations about like, medieval castles didn't look like this. What was a fairy tale castle? How is that different? How, like, I never understood as a kid the forced perspective thing. I just thought it was like smaller parts of more of a sculpture. Like it's not even like
so you realized it was smaller, but
yeah,
the illusion didn't work on you and you didn't
no,
understand it.
yeah, and I just thought, oh yeah, no, this isn't like a castle. It's just like a sculpture that looks like or inspired by castles, but like functionally, like no one could fit in that room. Like
Yeah. Well, it's more
who could fit in
functionally like a
that door?
facade is really what it is.
Yeah. And then I thought, oh, it's not even like a building. it's like a sculpture
Mm.
that we go and have rituals in front of,
Uh-huh.
like, and visit like a pilgrim. And I'm intentionally using some religious language here, right? But I just thought, oh wow. And like the idea, like even the Snow White bit about it, like being representative of like heaven,
Hmm.
like it was in the clouds.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot, like, wow, what was Walt doing? And then anyway, that hit me the second time around watching it. When they start off about the icon, I missed it the first time I watched it, that they
Mm.
started with the icon. Who's the icon? Mickey, Walt? No, the castles. And here's why. And I thought that was a
Yeah.
really cool intro.
You know what? I also, on that note about castles, when they started talking about Shanghai, and they were talking about, well, royalty in China don't live in, they didn't say just castles. They said fortresses. They don't live in fortresses. They live in palaces. And it's interesting when you're talking about the difference between a real castle, a real medieval castle versus a fantasy type castle. And it's like, for whatever reason, it didn't even like hit me. And I know it's obvious, but like, castles are fortresses is what they actually, that they're actually really a defense of war is really what they are. And for some reason that didn't really hit me until that line. And it's just kind of interesting how we see it as this fantasy, like magical thing. And like in reality, and this is the difference in reality and fantasy, and why the fantasy really is such a wonderful thing. But that kind of the reality of those castles is, that's what they're designed to do, is protect those people from from intruders.
When they were talking about that, and how no one knew how to build them, and how are they going to build it, and how much could they spend on it, and why would any investor justify the cost of this, what is essentially just a sculpture, like a
Yeah.
non-practical building, like what's the point, you know? And um, I I didn't like how some of the ways they described it, as the beacon that at the end of the street that I must go towards. Like why? Like what? Like they kind of say that as like it's a matter of fact thing, but like, I mean, why do I need to go towards it? Like I don't get that part, but or even
Well,
calling it a weenie, right?
yeah,
Like
I think that what they were saying though is like from in How to Be Like Walt, they described it and they talked about like his intention with it, and then with that was the idea that people can come in here without a map and can know where to go instinctually. There's a big giant thing there. I want to go towards it. And that will get me. Now, Fantasyland's great now, but at the time, that was kind of the main attraction, was Fantasyland. And so, and I don't know if Walt really thought that it would be such a thing for adults. It was adults and kids, but I think he thought that that was the main thing going into Fantasyland. So bringing you there, and then it goes to the, goes into the multiple different directions. One thing that in that episode I was talking about with Provost Park Pass, I'm talking about him doing the tour of Disneyland. When he went to the Walt statue, he said that's actually the spot when this wasn't here. The spot that Walt is standing in was designed to be the spot that you could stand and you can see directly into Fantasyland, you can see directly into Tomorrowland, and you can see directly into Adventureland. And you can get in the
Frontierland.
middle and see your options, but we don't have that because that's where the statue is. But I think it was more about like, if someone comes into this place, we don't have to guide them where to go. They instinctually know. And, maybe without that pull, people would just stay on Main Street, not knowing that there's anything out there. Like, oh, I
That
guess
is a
I'll
fascinating. That's a fascinating, like, human behavior sort of
people go to the
prediction.
big thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And but going back to the size of it, right? Like they with what they had to work with, they nailed it, and it's a classic, and it's great. And who cares if it's short or tall or whatever? Like I never went to Disneyland and looked at it and said, "Gee, that's short."
I never thought that. And
And
in
I
fact,
never
when I
thought
went to
like,
Disney World, I went, that's huge,
yeah,
was my thought. But I know that people who are Disney World people and come to Disneyland go, oh, that's short. But I think that,
it's completely
Californians, West
relative.
Coasters, I never thought about it. I never cared.
Yeah, yeah, like it short compared to what? Com Compared to the last fantasy looking castle you saw at the fair that was half the size? Like
Yeah, exactly.
compared to the last fantasy looking castle you saw at the putt putt golf course? Like
Yeah.
like compared to other fantasy castles that you're familiar with that don't exist? Like what are you comparing it to if not the one in Florida, right?
That
Because
is
and
100% it.
then like I never realized that like there is a certain population, I'm not part of this, that have been to real castles, you know, and especially if you live in France and you got
Yeah.
45,000 castles,
Yeah.
and you know, how is this one going to be different? Well, because it's different because it's not a castle.
Yeah.
It's a cute sculpture made by some artist uh, that is inspired by castles.
Yeah. That's made to represent that. It's made to do that. You know, Kenny, for those watching, my brother, uh, when he lived in England and then lived in Wales in particular, when he lived in Wales, he just said that there were castles everywhere, more accurately, just ruins everywhere. And I had this conversation with him about it, and he said, yeah, these, the Disneyland castle's better. Because it's just ruins, it's more of like, now who knows what it actually would have been like, but they did even talk about that real castles are kind of dark and dreary and that kind of thing. They're functional. They're there for a purpose. But I like this concept, and I think that many people criticize Walt for I don't know the word I'm looking for, cleansing fairy tales, for watering them down. And what they talked about was Walt's optimistic twist to fairy tales. And I also never thought until this episode that those fairy tales had these really just kind of nasty endings because they were told as cautionary tales to kids. Like the story of Hansel and Gretel, that's don't go into random strangers' houses to eat. Now, I'm not a big believer or supporter of using fear as a teaching model. It's not really something I'm a big fan of, but I think back in the days they were, and I never thought about that as a fairy tale, as like you're telling them to stay out of the woods because there might be monsters, when in reality there might be a bear. And I never thought about that. But I think it's really cool just to see like this is a representation of Walt's optimistic twist on the fairy tales, but also optimistic twist on life in general and making it a magical thing.
And I think they did a good job explaining that too in this
Yeah,
episode. I think they did it in a nice, concise way that actually made sense. And like it,
totally.
and it didn't really like, it wasn't dismissive or patronizing. I think it was okay. Yeah. It again, Walt Disney stories are not the original. They are an adaptation, and
Yes.
that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, they're based on a story is
Right.
really what they are. They're based on,
Kind of
that's
like the
it.
castle. The castle's not a castle. It's a sculpture based on a castle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
half of its rooms don't make any sense or are not accessible. Right. Sorry.
Yes.
Like
Well, there's a
uh,
walkthrough. I did think this was interesting. A
but I mean,
big
that's how I knew. Like you say, oh, but there's a walkthrough. That's how I knew as a kid that none of those rooms were what they said they were, because I just walked up there. You know what I mean? Like, you see what I mean? Like that's how I knew. Like,
Yeah.
but I'm
That's
sorry, I cut
funny.
you off.
You went up the stairs and you saw that there was nothing there. So, um, let's see, what was I going to say? One of the major criticisms of modern Disney is doing things like building an attraction for IP that has not yet come out. So building an attraction, building a ride on a movie that hasn't come out yet. And I
I
just
thought
thought it
that was
was
brilliant.
interesting that Sleeping Beauty's castle and the walkthrough came out in 1955, and that came out 3 years later in 59.
And that's when Todd James Pierce popped up. That's where he had that relevant line about using it to promote the upcoming film, which I thought was brilliant. I mean, that that's a great idea. And were they able to nail this castle to make it look like the castle in the movie? No, but who cares? Like, that's cool, that's fine. But like, if they had more money, could they have? Well, I don't know. When you were describing earlier, like what they could have done or did or didn't do, and what castles were and weren't, I kept thinking of how incredible it would be to see any of the castles from Game of Thrones in
Oh
real
yeah.
life. And then I thought the Red Keep or whatever, the one that the Lannisters were in, the big one, like
Mhm.
I thought, okay, if this Disney one was too expensive, or the one in Florida was too expensive, or the one in France was too expensive, or the one in Shanghai, the biggest one was too expensive, how much would that one from Game of Thrones be? Because
Oh,
number one, completely impractical. Number two, insanely expensive. It would be an engineering marvel. It's so huge. And it's like, what would you even do in it? Even in the Shanghai one, where you got the most possible things you could possibly do in a castle. What they got?
got the boat that goes through it.
The
Uh,
restaurant,
the restaurant.
the meet and
There was another. They
greets,
have a walkthrough. Yeah,
the
the boat,
walkthrough,
the walkthrough, restaurant, and then they had the other stuff that's at the
the
other ones,
bippity
like the
boppity
Bippity Boppity
boutique.
Boutique and a store, that kind of thing.
You would have to have, like, what else could you have in a castle? Really? Maybe if
More
it was
suites.
maybe more suites.
Honestly, they could build whatever castle they want. They could spend whatever money they want. If they put 100 rooms in there, they'd fill them every single night.
Dude, that's the next Star Wars hotel.
Yeah, they should build. Actually, they could build whatever they want because they could charge whatever they want for that.
That's the next Star Wars. No, actually, oh, that reminds me. Total tangent. I watched another piece of content that was worth plugging. DSNY
Huh?
came out with an episode on what he thinks the next Star Wars hotel is. It's
Oh, okay. I
he
love when he
doesn't
does that. He calls
he
it
does it. Yeah,
armchair Imagineer.
yeah. He did. It sparked my imagination, my memory when I said when you said that hotel idea in the castle. But his was turn the Paradise Pier Hotel into a Avengers HQ and make it look like Stark Tower on the side of it with the
Yeah,
jet landing thing on the side of it. And
that'd
then
be
he
cool
says,
because it is a big, tall building.
and his idea was to make the top 3 floors like the Star Wars hotel, but for a Marvel experience. And then the rest of the
Oh,
hotel stayed a regular hotel.
yeah.
I thought that was brilliant.
That's
Like,
really cool because
you know,
the Paradise Pier Hotel makes zero sense. It was already
there.
kind of a B level hotel anyway, in terms of, in terms of you got the Disneyland hotel, you have the Grand Californian, and then the Paradise Pier Hotel, which not only that, like it, I've stayed on off property hotels that I feel have even quicker access to the parks than
Yeah, yeah.
that hotel does. but that would work really well. That's a good idea.
It was so well presented too.
Yeah.
But to your point, like I don't know how many stories that hotel is. And
I'm not sure.
I didn't look up the height of it because I'm just going off the cuff right now. But to your point, they kept riffing on this one, Disneyland being 77 feet, the Florida one being 189 feet. France is whatever it is, Shanghai is whatever it is. But think of the size of the Paradise Pier Hotel and think to your point about turning a castle into a hotel. What if it was that big? Like talk about like they made that weird explanation of like, oh, the one in Florida has to be bigger because you have to see it from your car. Like, wait, why?
Because you don't see it from your car
you don't see
at
the
Disneyland.
one. Yeah, like why? Oh, but because there's a big lake in front. Well, okay. But why do I have to see the castle from way over there? Like, I don't know.
But
It's
that
kind
could
of
have
cool
just
though.
been like, you got to look at how these kind of documentaries are made. They sit down and ask people questions, and then they're
And the
riffing off
piece,
of it's a
yeah,
random question, and I just answered it off of my mind, and it could have been a random off the cuff. I forget his name. That Imagineer. He's great. He
yeah.
does tons of. He's involved in lots of stuff. Um, but I don't remember his name off the top of my head. But like, they're just kind of pieced together. I think it was only him who said that. Maybe it was someone else who talked about it, the problem of the line of sight, like the problem of seeing the castle when you're in Tomorrowland and that kind of thing. And I get what they're saying, but at the same time, like you see the Matterhorn really well from Tomorrowland. And
Yeah.
that doesn't, I
No,
mean,
it seemed like they were trying to defend something that didn't need to be defended. Like,
yeah,
why did we make it taller? Because we could and we had the money. That's
we had the
why.
money and the space. We got to
Yeah.
look at what was interesting. And we can talk in a second about them doing the addition to
Yeah.
Tokyo, which I think is
No,
fascinating.
the addition to Hong Kong.
Was Hong Kong. Okay. So the addition to Hong Kong, which I thought was really cool. And it was interesting to hear that was a part of at least an iteration of the idea of what they wanted to do. But I don't think it was really the point that they didn't have the money. It's that they didn't have enough evidence to be able to take that big of a risk,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
none of this was proven at the time.
yeah, yeah,
None of it was proven.
yeah.
Now it's like, well, they can make things and they know that it's going to bring people in. They know that it's going to do that. But at the time they just had no clue what it was. And eventually, the money people had to say, okay, we can't, we have to cut some things somewhere because we're spending so much money at once and we haven't made a dime yet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of related to but before we go on, yeah, I just thought, wow, what if either one of those castles had the mass of the Paradise Pier Hotel? Like you'd totally be able to see that from across
Everywhere.
the lake, or like anywhere, like, and like what if you could stay in there? And like
Totally.
what if it
There's
was a
only
big
one
old
room.
cool looking,
There's only
yeah,
one suite in there.
yeah, yeah,
And it would be so popular that they pretty much only use it for when there's some kind of award they're giving out or some kind of
yeah,
thing
yeah.
like that, or high
Contest,
level dignitaries or whatever. But
Johnny Depp. Yeah.
yeah, it's not something that you're just gonna go stay in. But like if they had 50 rooms in a castle in Disneyland, in any park, I guarantee that people would pay a premium to stay in there. I
And
mean,
probably more people than are going to be willing to pay the Star Wars hotel price.
probably. I mean, people pay, uh, you know, $700-800 a night for a regular room in the Grand Californian.
You know, I don't know when they're going to make another castle anywhere, but maybe the only one that has room right now to experiment with this idea would be the Shanghai one. I don't know if every square inch is used, but and
Uh,
it's a big old building, but I don't know what you would sacrifice, but that would be interesting. That is a fun idea to think about. But
yeah. It was also I like one thing about the whole show that I really like is how they don't focus on one attraction. Like they're focusing on one concept,
yeah,
but they tie together all the parks. When I heard about this, I kind of imagined like it would be a really highly produced YouTube video about a ride. But then with that one attraction, they show it in all the parks. They show the things that it inspired. They show all those different things. So with that, they did, start talking about Epcot and start talking about Spaceship Earth and just that whole thing, that icon. And I just think it's really cool how they tie everything together. They didn't go into all the other icons that they could have gone into, the tree at Animal
well,
Kingdom.
that's
And
why I brought up the offhand Disney episode.
because they talk about he talks about that.
He does them all. Yeah.
Ah, that's really cool. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Hey, but what'd you think of how they explained away calling these icons weenies?
Oh, about the dog thing?
Yeah.
Remind me what he said. It was something that like the dog got excited to see to get the hot
Yeah.
dog or something.
I knew that they called these things weenies,
Yeah.
but I thought it was a sexually inappropriate comment that people would make in the 50s and 60s. Like I thought
Oh.
it was inappropriate. Like my
Oh,
whole life.
I never thought that.
And like shame on me, shame on them. I don't know what I was assuming, like about like how the boys talked around the water cooler in the 50s, like it was Mad Men or something,
Uh-huh.
like I don't, but in this one, in this episode, they took that weenie concept head on. That I've heard other people, I'm not the only one that's thought that, but other people have thought that, but they took it head on and they're like, oh, no, yeah, it's just like Walt and his dog has a hot dog and the dog comes to it just instinctually. That's what this is for each land. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Fair enough.
I've heard it explained a couple other ways. I think I did hear something like that with the dog, but I never thought that it was anything inappropriate in any way. I just thought that that's just kind of
Hey, I'm a big fan of Mad Men. I don't know how I made the connection there. I always think of the Don Draper saying nostalgia is a hell of a drug. I
yeah.
think about that when I think about Disney,
Well,
obviously.
well, there's the
So
concept. There's the
maybe I have too
concept
many
that
connections.
yeah, but there's the concept that things were more wholesome in the 50s, right? There's the concept that things were more wholesome in the 40s, like as we go
Yeah, but
backwards in
also
time.
more un-PC of how they
Well, no,
talk.
no, well, I'm getting there. I'm not saying that
Oh,
that it was. I'm
oh,
saying that that's a
yeah.
concept. That's a belief. In fact, once again, not to name names, but a certain politician based his whole campaign around that concept of things being better in the past. But like a show like Mad Men kind of makes you realize,
It
oh,
wasn't.
maybe it really wasn't. But then again, Mad Men isn't a documentary. But the point is that it really wasn't when you actually learn about what was going on. Um, Not only was it not for certainly different groups, but just in general, it wasn't. It wasn't what we make it out to be. I think a part of that has to do with recordings, has to do with video, and we don't know what people really talked like and sounded like because the only recordings that we have were publicly broadcast things. We don't just have regular people talking. Like we don't have that. Anyway, I get where you're coming from, but my thought of it was always that I knew that Walt was a very simple guy in a lot of ways. And his preference for food was cold hot dogs out of the fridge and cans of baked beans. And so I knew that had something to do with that. But the dog thing, I didn't remember that off the top of my head, but it sounded familiar to me. So
Yeah.
I don't think that they would have, even though I'm sure there were backdoor conversations that they had that they wouldn't want to be heard today. But at the same time, I don't think that they would have been that public about, I mean, at least internally in the company and referring to something like that. Um, if it was something like you were talking about.
That's a kind read, but we can't forget, like, a lot of those animators drew a lot of sexually explicit pieces of animation and things, so it's
That's
just
true
like,
as well.
but I like the way that they handled it, and it seemed to make sense in this
Yeah, yeah,
episode.
yeah.
And I think within that same part of the episode, talking about the icon, talking about the weenie, talking about the draw, they had this really cool montage that I rewound and watched like 3 times of, like, it was 2 dozen different versions of the icon at the beginning of movies. Remember that? There was like,
Yeah.
I
They showed it
rewound
because,
it because, yeah, showing each one. I
well, I
thought it was
remember them
really
showing
cool.
like the one from that. I don't remember what it was called, but it was like a robot. Meet the Robinsons, I think it was. It was
Yeah,
like a
yeah, yeah,
robotic looking
yeah,
one. And then they had the Incredibles looking one, and they've done a bunch of them on the beginning of movies when they have something that they could do, and I think that's really cool when they do that.
yeah.
That's a really cool thing. Um, I thought their riff on the name of the one in Paris was fun.
Yeah.
I wrote it down. Let's see, I'm gonna butcher it, but La Chateau de la Belle Bois Dormant, however
Yeah.
that is, but it's a very long name.
Yeah. And yeah, Tom Morris he's a good storyteller. He's always fun to hear.
He's in
But
like every episode, and he was in every episode of Imagineering. Like that
because he's
guy,
such a good talker. He said,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's really cool. He's a really cool guy. Them talking about that. Um, I really want to go to France just to see the dragon under the castle.
I knew that was there. I knew that it was a beautiful castle, but one thing I learned from this episode and made me want to go even more, um, is the stained glass was done by the guy that did the stained glass for the Notre Dame. Like, that's like, and that whole riff that they did on how in France, there were people that knew how to maintain castles and build castles, unlike in the United States. Like, there were people that actually maintained the craftsmanship of the type of maintenance that these types of old buildings need, including expert stained glass window guys that were
Huh.
stoked to do a fairy tale for the first. An
So
80-year-old comes out of retirement to come and do this, all excited. I thought that was awesome.
I must have missed that part. So what did you mean by he did so he was doing like the maintenance of the stained glass
Yeah,
at
yeah,
Notre
yeah,
Dame?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Because
yeah,
I was like, how old is this guy? He
yeah,
did
yeah.
the
No,
he did the stained glass at
it's
Notre
a
Dame.
1,000 years old. No, 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 no. Like, he's the one that just most recently did the most recent after the fire.
After the fire, them
Yeah.
rebuilding it, he
Or
did all.
maybe it was prior to I don't remember, but
Well, because it would have because this
I don't
this was
remember the
built
time.
long before the fire. The fire only happened like within the last
Yeah, I
five
guess
like
he was just the
5 years
guy
ago.
that did some maintenance. Yeah, that doesn't make
Uh-huh.
sense. You're right. Yeah. But
That's cool.
yeah.
The dragon under the castle. I know about the dragon because of Justin Scar's video.
All right.
That's what got me going. Like, I got to see this. I was telling Caitlin that I want to go. I want to go to France, and I want to go there so that we can go to Disneyland Paris. And she's like, okay, cool. So then, like, how many days should we plan for like going to Paris as well? And I was like, yeah, I guess we should do that too since we're there. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, we should do that.
Freaking Americans, man. Freaking Americans. It's like, uh, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, don't regret the trip. You gotta see the other parts of
Of
France too.
course, of course.
Yeah.
I'm only partially joking. You know,
No, yeah, no,
I'm only
but your joke really resonates with me. Like I remember 10 or 15 years ago, my mother and my sister went to Paris. And when they didn't include, I think it was still Euro Disney at the time, when they didn't include it on their trip, I thought, what, why wouldn't you? Like, if you're over there, like, I mean, just like a day, like,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, what? And they're like, dude, we're only there for 5 days. We're gonna see France. And I was like, well, okay, yeah, no, I get it. I'm sorry, but but just one day, like, come on, like, you don't need to go to the stupid studios park. Like, just go to
Yeah,
the.
I don't think that part. I don't think that's worth taking time away from going and seeing
I
France.
mean,
But
when they finish all their redo stuff, it will be, but not yet.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Anyway,
I definitely want to go there.
yeah.
Then I think the kind of last thing we need to cover is Shanghai and them kind of going into that and the idea of it. Um, the feng shui nation or notion of it, and them making sure that things were pointed in the right direction. And I thought that was so interesting about, well, it might not be in the right direction for pictures and things like that, but this is important for this culture. I thought that was really fascinating.
Well, that was Hong Kong did it that way.
Oh, it
I'm
was in
not
Hong Kong.
sure.
Sorry.
I'm not sure Shanghai did. I think they did too. But the only reason I'm hesitating is because they didn't mention that Shanghai was done that way. They just mentioned that Hong Kong was. But but um
Mm. But they
but I
talked
do
about it
love,
right in the same sentence, though, in the same section when
yeah,
they were talking
I'm
about it.
sure that, I mean, they were both in China. So I mean, I'm sure they were
Well, and
people
the Shanghai one is
compared.
where they spent a lot more time. I honestly, I think it was that because Hong Kong is a copy, I think.
Yeah, but I think they were talking about the mountains behind and the water in front. I don't remember exactly, but it was cool. And that was cool. And um yeah, I'm sorry. Did you want to say anything else about the Hong Kong
No, it was
or the
just
feng shui?
interesting and hearing that one Imagineer who I can't remember if she said she was born there or if her parents were if her parents came. I don't remember if she was born in the United States or not, but her
Doris
talking about
Woodward. Yeah,
what's that?
Doris Woodward. Yeah,
Yes, and she was
she
talking
was
about
cool.
her
I liked her
heritage
contribution. Yeah.
and understanding it, and it was just really interesting. And I kind of go back. They didn't say this line in there, but the line that Bob Iger talked about when the park opened was authentically Disney and distinctly Chinese, and them creating something that really unique, like a really unique place. That's another place. Like, I mean, I might as well see other things in China while I'm there, but I really want to go to Shanghai Disney is what I really want to do.
And on that trip, I really want to go to Hong Kong too. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I really liked their segment on the show. The Doris Woodward, Doug Rogers, and Bob Weiss talking about both Hong Kong and Shanghai.
Yeah.
And I was critical of how they used emotion in the last episode, how I thought it got too sappy. But
Yeah.
in this one, I think they nailed it with the Doug Rogers story.
His
Uh,
story was really cool about
yeah,
him just being an artist and going, wow, I'm in a building that I just drew on a
and
piece of
getting to do
paper.
it not once but twice,
Uh-huh.
and nailing it. At least I really like the Hong Kong redo. I really
Yeah.
like it. I think the Shanghai is kind of ugly from some
Mm.
perspectives on the sides and the back, but I like what they tried to do with it. But I've heard people critical of the Hong Kong redo, but I really like it. I really,
I think
and
it looks really cool.
to hear how he designed it, to hear how Doris Woodward um, incorporated all the princesses into it. Like, well done. And there
Yeah.
was one riff where her and Doug and Bob Weiss were talking, where there was this really cool music in the background. Cool enough, I want to look it up. Maybe someone put it in the comments, but there was like a 2-minute clip with some really cool music. I don't know what it was from. I liked it. It was at the part where it was most appropriately. No, it was before his emotional story, I think. But I like that part. Did you notice they showed the Brady Bunch 9 square thing with the 9 people? They showed that twice, once at the beginning and once towards the end here. Tony Baxter is in there. Everyone else is in the episode except Tony Baxter. I was like, hey, what's going on? Like, why'd you leave him out?
Interesting.
Like, cutting room floor. Like, where's his part? I want to see his part.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's interesting. So here's a random question. Not that they have the room, but what do you think that Disneyland fans would do if they did a similar addition to the Disneyland castle?
I think they would riot, and I don't think Disney would want that, or to I don't think the current administration would want to spend the money on it either.
Totally.
But what I love is that it goes back to something we've riffed on before about making everything not a carbon copy, but making every place unique. So that you can have marks like us having conversations about wanting to visit each place because each place is explicitly different.
If they were identical, why would I care?
Like, I want to go to Hong Kong more now than I did before. Period. Like, it's silly to say, oh, just because the castle's different. Well, no, I really wanted to go to see Mystic Manor, and that's probably the only reason I want to go. But now it's cooler that the castle's cooler. Yeah. Like, whatever, win, right? Like,
yeah. No, it is really cool that they're all different, that they all have a different twist to things. I thought this was a really fun episode. Before I forget, there was a part of the beginning.
Wait. I want to turn your question back on you.
Okay.
What do you think would happen if they tried to do it in Anaheim?
It is it makes sense that Disney now owns Star Wars because Disney fans, especially Disneyland fans, Disney World fans are a completely different group of people. They are, and no offense to Disney World people, but Disney World people are not, they don't have the same kind of culture around Disneyland that was brought on by locals having annual passes and using the park as a country club, as we've talked about before, as opposed to it being a vacation spot. Very, very different. I had a conversation with someone at the someone outside of the Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom, and they were doing the thing. They had annual passes. They lived close by, and I was like, if this thing was in Disneyland, people would be all about it. Like, people would be coming, just everyone would be coming and doing this thing all the time. And he was like, oh man, I know what they do over there. I'm so jealous of like that culture, like the annual pass holder culture. Anyway, I bring this all up to say that Disneyland fans, much like Star Wars fans, and also much like wrestling fans, are all very similar in which kind of complain about everything, but yet still love everything at the same time. And there's both going on at the same time. And so I don't know. I mean, in reality, it could be something where there's a lot of complaints about it at the beginning, but then they go, wow, this is incredible. Like, this is really cool. Like, I really, really like this. But it also, I think those changes have to be done well. As I go back into the Imagineering story, when they talk about It's a Small World and adding the characters, and how people were so furious at them adding the characters, but then it was done in a very tasteful way that's really fun. And to be honest, when I go in Florida, I'm like, where are the characters? I want the characters here. Like it's fun to see them. So I think it would have to be really good. It would have to be really good, or else people would be very upset.
And I think they kind of knocked it out of the park with the Hong Kong one. If it was that good, it might work.
Totally.
But
Totally.
that sounds blasphemous to even say it out loud.
No, but you know what though? I'm actually surprised they didn't cover this on the episode. You know, why didn't they bring in, over the last 5 years, they have a completely new use for the castles. The castles were never something that was used as a part of a show, but now with projection mapping, they are an essential part of the fight. The
Yeah,
fireworks aren't just
that
behind.
seems like a missing segment of this episode.
Yeah,
They
and
should
not
have.
just that,
Yeah.
like last year they didn't even put up lights. They just did the projection for Christmas and the change of projections. And I would argue that it was cooler. Like I thought it was cooler seeing, I just saw pictures of it. But I bring that up because I never thought that the castle was small in any way, shape, or form, or more accurately, I never thought it mattered that it was smaller than the one at Magic Kingdom, until I was watching the fireworks show last month and seeing the projections on it from midway back in Main Street
Oh, yeah.
and thinking, if it was bigger, it would be a lot easier to see the projections on the fireworks. And I've seen it at Magic Kingdom, and from way back there, it's the fireworks show with the projections. It actually matters in that. It's not just that it's bigger, because you can see these it's a bigger canvas for them to paint on, and since it's used in a completely different way.
You just gave us a great outro, probably without even realizing it. And not that I'm trying to cut us off, but
No,
I just
I'm pretty
remembered.
much said everything.
Yeah, I just ran out of my notes too, and I didn't mean to do that intentionally as a segue, but as you were saying that about you being in Florida and watching the projections on the thing, I remembered that tonight, I think, or tomorrow night, they're going to stream the new show for the 50th.
Oh, cool.
Disney's going to stream it, live stream it. So, and now I'm sure it's not as cool watching it on your computer, but
Yeah.
If anyone wanted to see it or cares, they're going to stream that tonight or tomorrow night, and they're going to
If it's
stream
tonight, it should be going on right now, actually.
and they're going to stream the new Epcot show. What's it called? Harmonious.
Uh-huh.
Tomorrow night or the next night or something like that, in preparation for the first. So anyway,
Yeah.
if anyone
That's
sees
great.
this, I mean, you're watching this in the future. Hopefully, the live stream is up there and you can watch it retroactively if you want.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that they would I wouldn't think they'd take it down.
No, yeah,
and regardless, there's going to be a bunch of YouTube videos of it within the next couple of days anyway.
I bet that's why they did it. Actually, I bet they're like, okay, you vloggers, we're not going to shut you down. We're just going to do it better than you.
Yeah, we're going to do a professional production of it.
Yeah.
Because probably in the past they would go, well, we don't want to put this out. We don't want people to see it because they have to come here to see
We
it.
want them to pay. Yeah.
But now, well, they're going to see it anyway, and some of those videos are so good. Like they're really good. I thought it was fun to see. I don't know if you saw on Instagram and things like that. I saw a bunch of people with media passes from multiple airports showing the new Southwest airplanes that had a wrap on them of Disney World 50th anniversary celebration. Did you see anyone posting that? I saw multiple people that had some kind of press pass for Southwest kind of thing, and them showing it, and I just thought it was interesting. I didn't know that was happening, but I guess they're doing some kind of partnership there, because Southwest does so many. I mean, if you fly Southwest to Florida, I mean, it pretty much is a Disneyland bus is what it is. I mean, a Disney World bus is pretty much what it is.
That's funny. Yeah. No, I didn't see that yet, but as you were talking, I remembered I can preview what I'm going to share next time when we do the episode on the Disneyland Hotel. For next time, I'm going to tell you right now, I know what piece of content I'm going to plug. I just remembered I bought a virtual ticket to the WDW News Today Golden Jamboree.
Oh,
They have like a 3 day event. I've got like, you got like a month to watch the whole thing. I'm not going to watch it all on the first and the second and the third, but they have a bunch of cool panels. They're interviewing a bunch of old Imagineers and people involved with Walt Disney World, and mostly a bunch of entertainers who've entertained at Walt Disney World over the years. Some of which have been out of work since COVID and all that, but no, I'm definitely going to plug that. And if I forget, then remind me.
okay. Sounds good. I'm excited about that. But one last thing I wanted to say was at the very beginning of the episode, they were showing a construction video and it showed Main Street with a dirt road in the middle and it showed cars parked. And it was just so interesting to see cars parked at the curb of Main Street, even though it's not a real road. People are still intuitively parking like it was a real street. It was just interesting to see that. That's not a look that you're used to seeing, like cars parked along the Main Street as if it was an actual street. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. But with that being said, I covered everything that I wanted to cover today and hope
Me
everyone
too.
enjoyed this episode. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please make a comment below. Like the video, share it, subscribe. Also check us out on Instagram. We're putting out a lot of great stuff there. Creative Kingdom Society. And Chuck, sign us off.
Never forget, keep consuming and keep creating.